So we have discussed almost all the basic uh, points of transmission lines, the basic features, the various important parameters such as the standing wave ratio, reflection coefficient, and of course the transmission line parameters themselves, and the derivation of the transmission line equation. And we have also seen a few calculations how they have to be done through numerical examples. And we see that transmission line calculations involve a lot of complex numbers, and handling complex numbers or carrying out computations which involve complex numbers is always time consuming. So there are graphical methods which can simplify the calculations a lot, in the sense it is possible to make many of these calculations through some simple interpretations in a graph which is in fact a chart, and this is called as the Smith chart. It is named after the person who developed this. So what we discuss now is the graphical methods, the graphical methods in the calculations involved in the calculations of various parameters, input impedance and standing wave ratio and so on of transmission lines. And this graphical method is using the Smith chart. So graphical methods using the Smith chart. So let us first derive the Smith chart, spend some time on deriving the Smith chart, and then we will proceed with the way we will proceed to understand how the Smith chart is used in the various transmission line calculations. So we start with the expression ZS, that is the line impedance. Remember, if S is 0, it is the load impedance, and because we have our load at S0, and for other values of S, it is the impedance on a particular point, on the transmission line. And if S happens to be where you have the input, this becomes the input impedance. So this expression we know. We have been using this for quite some time now. So this is our expression for the impedance. Now what we do is we normalize this. So we arrive at a normalized impedance, and normalization is with respect to R0. And remember that I have R0 here, so I am still in the high frequency approximation. So I can normalize the impedance like this, and once I normalize, remember, please keep track of how I have normalized it. I have divided the impedance with the characteristic impedance so that I get a normalized impedance, and this normalized impedance will in general have a resistive part and a reactive part, because ZS can have a resistive and reactive part. R0 is of course resistive, but when you take the ratio, since the numerator can have a resistive and reactive part, this will in general have a resistive part, which I will write with small letter r subscript a, plus j, a reactive part, x subscript a. So r subscript a plus j x subscript a is nothing but zs by r0. We have it like this. Now k e raised to j phi minus 2 beta s is obviously a complex quantity. Its magnitude is equal to the magnitude of the reflection coefficient, and phi, as you know, is the angle of the reflection coefficient, phase angle of the reflection coefficient. We can write this as, since it's a complex quantity, in polar form, we can write it in its rectangular form like this: U plus, capital U plus JV. Okay, which means that the expression here can, since we have equated this, since we are expressing it like this, the equation here, equation for the normalized impedance can be expressed as U plus JV, and this becomes 1 minus U plus JV. So 1 plus U plus JV and 1 minus U plus JV. And we can multiply with 1 minus U. Maybe it is easier if you write like this, just for convenience. It will be familiar if you write like this, because we can easily separate real and imaginary parts. So we can now write it like this. You know what is it that I am attempting to do here. So we can multiply it with this, and the result will be, when you see the result of this multiplication, you will get, so remember, we are multiplying both the numerator and denominator with the conjugate of this. So we are trying to make the denominator real and rationalize the whole thing. And when you expand this, so I will not spend time expanding this. This is something you can do. So this into this, if you do, the result will be, it's a simple expansion which you can do. The result will be 1 minus U square minus V square plus 2JV. And in the denominator, as you know, you will get 1 minus U square plus V square. So this is our normalized impedance. Now, in terms of the the rectangular components of magnitude k e raised to j 5 minus 2 beta s. Now, this is j, that is the square root of minus 1. Now you can compare the real and imaginary parts and write down expressions for Ra as equal to 1 minus U square minus V square divided by 1 minus U square plus V square. This becomes the resistive part of the normalized line impedance, and we can write, by comparing the imaginary parts, XA, that's the reactive part of the normalized impedance, as equal to 2V divided by 1 minus U square plus V square. So we have these equations, and with these two equations we will be deriving the Smith chart. We will be understanding what is actually the Smith chart. So what I do is I will take the first one. I will take the first one. So this I will remove for the time being, because we take it one by one. I will take the first one, and let me create some space here. So I will take the first one. That is, this is the one that we'll take first, and we manipulate this. So I will write down the steps. It must be quite obvious what I am doing. 1 minus U square Ra plus Ra into V square. So this into this equal to 1 minus U square minus V square. So now this can be written as 1 plus U square minus 2U. Of course, I can expand it and simultaneously multiply with Ra, so that I can jump a step. Ra plus U square Ra minus 2U Ra plus Ra v square is equal to 1 minus u square minus v square. So again, minus plus plus equal to 0, or this is equal to 1. So you can write it like this. So basically that's what I have done. This expression I have expanded this, retained the 1 there, and rest of it I have brought over here. That's simply what I have done. Though I did an additional step of having it here and then taking it over there, I could have retained it 1 here itself and then brought it here and expanded this. That's what I have done. Okay, so now this we'll remove because we have it here now. So what we do now is we will combine the u square terms first. So there are u square terms here. You can see there is one here and there is one here. So I can combine these two and write u square into 1 plus RA. And then I have this term which will be simply plus R, or rather v square. I think there is one more over here. We have v square and v square RA. So we can combine those two similarly, similar to how we combined it here. So I get 1 plus RA v square, and then I have minus 2u RA, minus 2u RA, and the RA that is left here, we will take it over here to get 1 minus RA. So u square terms combined, v square terms combined, this is retained as it is, this RA is taken over there, so you get 1 minus RA. And this means that we have u square plus v square minus 2u RA by 1 plus RA is equal to 1 minus RA divided by 1 plus RA. Simply divide both sides with 1 plus RA to get this. Now you can see that you can use the method of completing the squares and write this as equal to u minus RA divided by 1 plus RA whole square. So when you expand this, you will get u square, you will get minus 2u RA by 1 plus RA, and you will get an extra plus RA square by 1 plus RA square. You can compensate for that by doing this. These are simple tricks which you learn in school. And then I have plus v square is equal to 1 minus RA by 1 plus RA. So this I can now write as 1 minus RA square and square of this. That is, just multiply numerator and denominator with 1 plus RA and use a plus b into a minus b, is a square minus b square. And now we are closing in on an expression of a circle. U minus RA by 1 plus RA square plus v square is equal to, take this over here, and you will have 1 by 1 plus RA square. This is a circle. This is a circle on the UV axis. On the UV plane, this is a circle. You can draw this as a circle. The center of the circle will be at RA by 1 plus RA, 0, and the radius of the circle will be 1 plus RA. Of course, positive, because radius is a positive quantity. Don't take the negative root. So we have, from the expression, the first of the two expressions which I had here earlier, the first one results in, the manipulation of the first one results in the expression of a circle. Okay, let it be there now. So we have recorded this, we'll have this with us. Now we take the second expression that I had here earlier. So the second expression is, again I'll rewrite here because I have to manipulate this to something else. This was that expression. Now we can write it as 1 minus u square plus v square minus 2v by xa equal to 0. This is the same as u minus 1 square plus, again you can use the complete the squares trick here, and you can write this as equal to 1 by xa. Remember, this is subscript, looks like x into a, it is actually x subscript a. So v minus 1 by xa square. So I'm using these two and trying to combine them. I get v square. I'll get minus 2v by xa plus I'll get an extra 1 by x square. So that 1 by x square I can compensate by writing this as equal to 0, and if I take it over there, I see that I'm getting another circle. I get another circle, equation for another circle on the UV plane, or the UV set of U and V axis. We get another circle, center at 1 by xa, and radius 1 by xa. It is 1 by xa square. I'm sorry, please keep track of that. It is 1 by xa square. It was 1 by xa square. When I took it over there, I might have missed that. Anyhow, it is 1 by xa square. So radius is 1 by xa. Again, of course, you take the positive square root. So we have two sets of circles. In fact, the first circle was had its center at Ra by 1 plus Ra 0, and the radius was 1 by 1 plus Ra. So it was a function of Ra. The circle itself was a function of Ra in the sense its center and radius was a function of Ra. Here you see that the center and the radius is a function of xa. So the first one has its center and radius as a function of the real part of the normalized impedance, and this has its center and radius as a function of the imaginary part of the normalized impedance. So the plot of these, if we plot these two circles, these sets of circles, we get the Smith chart. So let's proceed to do that. Okay, let us take the first set of circles, that is the one which was having an expression like this: u minus Ra divided by 1 plus Ra whole square plus v square equal to 1 by 1 plus Ra whole square. Let us take this first and let us try to plot this circle. So as we see here clearly, it's a function of Ra, and let us say that this is our u axis, and this is the v axis. So remember, it's being plotted on the uv axis. Let us start with R0. Let's start with R0. So if you put R0, you see that the center is at 0. Ra0, sorry, yeah, Ra0 means you get u minus 0. That is u. So circle equation becomes u square plus v square is equal to 1. So that is a circle of unit radius centered at the origin over here. So R equal to 0 RA equal to 0 corresponds to a circle like this. So this circle represents a case where the resistance, the resistive part of the normalized impedance is 0. Resistive part of the impedance is 0. Of course, normalization is divided by R0. So if that result is 0, it means that the resistive component of the impedance is 0. So that is what this means. So RA is equal to 0 is a circle of unit radius. So remember, this is 1. So maybe I will, okay, let's see if later required we will write it. So this is a circle of unit radius. And then let us go for RA equal to 0.5. So let us next take the case of RA is equal to 0.5. So if RA is equal to 0.5, this becomes 0.5 divided by 1.5. 0.5 divided by RA is 0.5. 0.5 divided by 1.5. That will be nothing but 1 by 3. 0.5 divided by 1.5. So if I multiply it with 2, I get 1 by 3. Of course, it's indeed 1 by 3, 0.5 and 1.5. So 1 by 3. Center is at 1 by 3, 0. So this being 1, this being 1, this is the 0. This will be roughly, if I divide this into 3 parts, it's not a perfect division, but still, nevertheless, good enough for our understanding. This will be 1 by 3, this will be 2 by 3, and this will be 3 by 3, which is 1. So 1 by 3 is the, 1 by 3, 0 is the location of the origin. So 1 by 3 on U and 0 on V. This will be the point where you have the origin, the center of the circle. And radius will be 1 divided by 1 by 1 plus RA is the radius. So 1 divided by 1 plus 0.5. That will give us 1 by 1.5, which is 2 by 3. So 2 by 3 is the radius. So center here and radius 2 by 3. This is 1 by 3, this is 1 by 3. So radius is 2 by 3. This becomes the circle for RA equal to 0.5. In fact, there are infinite number of values possible for RA between 0 and 0.5, which means there are numerous circles. But as RA reduces, decreases, these circles will start to have larger and larger radius, and they will gradually shift their center towards the left, as you can clearly see. And now we will go for RA is equal to 1. So when RA is equal to 1, we have the center at 1 by 2. It's quite simple. RA is equal to 1 means center is 1 by 2 and radius will be 1 by 2. Center at 1 by 2, radius at 1 by, radius also 1 by 2. RA is 1. Center is 1 by 2, radius is 1 by 2. So 1 by 2 will be somewhere here. This will be 1 by 2. So center is here, radius is also 1 by 2. Center is here, radius is also 1 by 2. So this is 1 by 2, this is 1 by 2, this is the center. The circle will be such that it fits perfectly in this region. This will be 1 by 2. It is not drawn to scale and the circles are not very perfect the way I have drawn, but nevertheless this is a circle. So this will be corresponding to RA is equal to 1. Now one last. So again remember, in between these there can be numerous circles. So an actual Smith chart, a useful Smith chart will have lots of circles. I will show that, and I have also uploaded it in our files in MS Teams. So here next we go for this plot for one more value of RA. Let's say RA is equal to 2. So if RA is equal to 2, you have the center at 2 by 3, 0. RA is equal to 2 means you have center at 2 by 3, 0, and radius will be RA is equal to 2, 1 by 3. So 2 by 3, 0 is this. So center is here and radius is 1 by 3. Radius is 1 by 3. Which means that our circle will be like this. So this is for RA equal to 2. So that is it. That is the first expression. When we plot for various values of RA, we get a result like this. As I said, there will be numerous circles when you look into all the possible values of RA. Of course, there are infinite possible values from RA is equal to 0 onwards. But only a finite number can be shown, obviously, in a useful chart. So what I have shown here is just an example how the chart looks like. An actual chart will have many such circles. And as I said, I will show it now. It's also there uploaded in our files. Okay, next, let us see just one more thing. We don't have nothing much to draw here. What happens when RA is infinite? So RA infinite corresponds to, if you are looking at the impedance at the load side, RA is equal to infinite corresponds to an open circuit. So if RA is infinite, you can see what happens to the center. If RA is infinite, the center is at 1, 0. Put RA is, as RA becomes larger and larger, this approaches 1. Center is at 1, 0. And the radius is 0, which means that it is a point here. So the point here corresponds to RA is equal to infinity. And you can see as RA value decreases, the circle starts to have larger and larger radius, and its center starts to move along like this till you reach RA is equal to 0. So that is the first part. Now we will plot the second set of circles on the same axis, so that we'll get a complete picture how a Smith chart looks like. So when we move on to the second one is this, right here. U minus 1 square plus V minus 1 by X A square is equal to 1 by XA square. This is the second expression. So what I do is, we will take the case x equal to 1. X is equal to 1 corresponds to the circle having its center at 1, 1. If XA is 1, center is at 1, 1. Center is at 1, 1. And radius is 1. So center is 1, 1 means the center is here. Center is here. And radius is 1. This is 1 because the radius of this circle is 1. RA is equal to 0, circle has a radius of 1. So this is the radius, this is the center, this is the radius. So if you plot a circle here, that circle will go like this. But since RA can take on a value only from 0 to infinity, all the information necessary will be within the circle. RA can never have a value which is less than 0 and more than infinity. It doesn't make sense. RA cannot be negative and RA cannot be more than infinity, because this doesn't make sense and this is not possible. So we have to worry only about what is there inside this circle, which means that when we plot the circle with its origin here and radius 1, we need to plot only what comes within this circle, and that will be this. So this is for XA equal to 1. And similarly for XA minus 1, XA can take minus 1 value. It is not like resistance, it's a reactance. It can take negative value. So when XA is minus 1, the center shifts to 1 minus 1. That means the center shifts over here, but the radius remains as 1 by A. 1 by 1, that is 1, which means that XA minus 1 will be this. So this will correspond to XA minus 1. I will not write it separately. Whatever comes here, the complementary image of it here corresponds to the negative value of this. Now quickly let us go for X equal to 2, XA equal to 2. If XA is 2, the origin shifts, the central circle shifts to 1 and 1 by 2. XA is 2, center shifts to 1 and 1 by 2, and radius will be 1 by 2. Radius will be 1 by 2 if XA is equal to 2. So center shifts here. This is roughly 1 by 2. Center shifts here and radius is 1 by 2. And since we are concerned only with what is happening inside this unit circle, we will have a picture like this. So roughly it will look like this. So this corresponds to XA equal to 2. And like that, if we just take two more quickly. XA equal to 0.5. XA is equal to 0.5 shifts the origin to 1, 2. Similarly, XA minus 0.5 will take it to 1 minus 2. And XA equal to 0.5 will result in the radius of 2. 1 by 0.5 is 2. Now, center of the circle is at U is equal to 1 and V is equal to 2. That will be out of the board. So the center will be somewhere here. U is equal to 1, V is equal to 2, it will be somewhere here. And radius will be 2. So you can visualize that it's going to look like this. Center is somewhere here and radius is 2. And for XA minus 0.5 it will be like this. So this is XA 0.5. This is for minus 0.5. Now quickly, last one. If XA is 0. If XA is 0, that means we are considering a case where the impedance is purely resistive. There is no reactive part. If XA is 0, what happens is that you can see the center shifts to 1 infinity. XA is 0. Center shifts to 1 infinity and radius is infinity. 1 infinity will be U is equal to 1 and V infinity. And for negative values, that means XA becoming very, 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 very small. On the negative side, you will have the radius shifted, the origin shifted to the below the intersection here. Of course, the negative side of V axis, let me put it that way. So if XA is 0, you will have center at 1 infinity, at the top infinity, and radius is also infinity. That is nothing but this axis. So this is XA is equal to 0. So since you can see that as XA becomes smaller and smaller, the circle tends to have larger and larger radius, and in the limit as XA tends to infinity, it will naturally come and touch this. So XA is equal to 0 is this, and hence this line, this horizontal line represents a load which is purely, or an impedance which is purely resistive. Okay, so this is what a Smith chart is. This is what a Smith chart is. And an actual Smith chart, which is of some practical use, will look like this. So I will show you this is the basic structure, and the complete complexity, the complex Smith chart will look like this. This is how it looks like. So you can see those circles here. You can see the circles here. And you can see the various circles correspond. So these circles correspond to various values of R, which may be visible here. Otherwise, we will I'll see whether it is visible. I hope it is visible. This is, you can see RA equal to 1, RA equal to 0.8 and so on. And X values you can see here. XA is 1, XA is 0.8, XA is 0.6. So this is how a real useful Smith chart looks like. So how do you do the computations using this? That we'll discuss maybe later or in the next video while we take up some examples. So we have understood what a Smith chart is, and we now make some important observations. There are a few observations that we have to make from the Smith chart before we proceed with its use in transmission line calculations. So let us discuss these. Mainly there are 3 observations to be made. In fact, there are many, but these 3 are main, and with the help of this, these observations will help us in a better understanding of the Smith chart and its use in transmission line calculations. So let us draw the chart. So this is the Smith chart. This is the RA equal to 0 circle, and we have the RA circle for various values of RA. I will not draw all of them because what we want is we just have to capture the essence of the Smith chart for this particular discussion here, in the sense the observations that we are going to make. We don't need the complete Smith chart, we just need to have the essence of that. So a few circles are enough. So these are for the positive XA values, these are for their corresponding negative XA value. This is XA equal to 0, and as I said, this is the RA equal to 0 circle, various values of RA infinity is here, and so on and so forth. Now the first observation is that, let us discuss the first observation, in the sense before we make a statement and then discuss it, just try to understand what is that observation that we have to make. So let's say that we have a transmission line. We have a transmission line with a load ZR, and let's say that, of course, on this side you have the source or the generator. The source or generator is there on this side, and this is the load side, LOAD, the load side. Let's say that we just take an arbitrary point somewhere here, S dash, and remember S0 is the load and S equal to L will be the source or the generator. So this side S is decreasing, S0 is here. So we have just chosen a particular point S equal to S dash on the transmission line, and we know that K e power j phi minus 2 beta S is what we express as U plus JV, and any point on this which I can represent as a phasor will be a representation of this. It will be representing this because this is the U and this is the V axis. So if I choose a particular value for U, a particular value for V, I get the phasor representing this quantity. So now at this position S equal to S dash, we have this quantity as magnitude K e raised to j phi minus 2 beta S dash. and that will be, of course, u plus jv. U and v will vary as s changes. At s dash, they will have a particular set of values depending on what is the magnitude of k and its phase phi. So let us say that it is somewhere here. This is just an arbitrary choice. So let's say this is that k, magnitude k e raised to j phi minus 2 beta s dash is this. So this angle will be phi minus 2 beta s dash. Okay, now as we move from s dash towards the load, let's say we are decreasing s dash, decreasing s from s dash. Remember, this is s0 and s decreases like this. So as we move from s equal to s dash to say s equal to s dash minus delta s, that means I move delta s this side, some particular distance delta s this side. So let's say we are moving a small distance or maybe a significant distance that we'll see later. Let's say we are moving this side a certain distance. So what happens is that this changes to, the phase here changes to, magnitude does not change, the phase changes to phi minus 2 beta s dash, and I am moving from s dash to s dash minus delta s. So plus 2 beta delta s. This minus and the s dash minus delta s becomes plus 2 beta delta s. Now what happens is that if you compare the two phase angles, you can see that the phase angle here has increased. So from phi minus 2 beta s dash, it has become phi minus 2 beta s dash plus 2 beta delta s. So that is this is what happens. So the phase angle increases from phi minus 2 beta s dash to phi minus 2 beta s dash plus 2 beta delta s. And for phasors, when the angles increase, they increase in the counterclockwise direction. The angle increases in the counterclockwise direction. So as you move toward, this is one of the important observations, as you move towards the load, you tend to move on the Smith chart in the counterclockwise direction, because as you move towards the load, as we see here, the phase angle increases, and angle increases this way. So whenever, the other way of telling that is that the corollary kind of is that if you are moving this way on the Smith chart, we'll see exactly when we move on the Smith chart while we saw the examples. But if you are moving in this direction on the Smith chart, you are actually mimicking a movement towards the load on the actual transmission line. Similarly, by the same argument, which I will not elaborate here, if you are moving in this direction, that means suppose we were, instead of going from s dash to s dash minus delta s, if we had increased this, remember it is increasing in this direction because this is s0, this is sl. If we had moved to s dash plus delta s, we would have ended up decreasing this angle. And then it would have resulted in a movement of the phasor in this direction. So any direction in the clockwise direction on the Smith chart refers to a movement towards the source, and any counterclockwise movement refers to a movement towards the load. This is an important observation. So I will write here, and you can see this in the actual Smith chart written here. In the actual Smith chart, it will be written somewhere here. There are so many details in the actual Smith chart, so it will look a bit crammed, but once you understand what it is actually, it becomes easy to use. So this will be towards source. It's moving, when you move in this direction in this Smith chart, you are moving towards the source, and if it is in this direction, it is towards the load. So that is one point. Now another interesting observation is that suppose we indeed move delta s, be it in this direction or this direction. Let us say we are moving towards the load delta s, and by this time, you know, if you are moving towards the load, you are going this direction. So when you move towards the load, as I said, the phase angle becomes, so maybe, yeah, I'll write here itself, the phase angle becomes phi minus 2 beta S dash plus 2 beta delta S. So you have moved a certain distance delta S. And we have seen that when this happens, you start to rotate this phaser in this direction. You're moving towards the load. Now the question is, what is this delta S? What will be this delta S such that, and again I repeat it again, as you move towards the load, it just rotates in this direction. The question is, what should be this delta S so that you move towards the load like this and complete one full circle and reach back here. What is that delta S? So the question is, what is the delta S? What is the delta S such that, and as you go in this direction, the phaser, this quantity, this entity starts to rotate in this direction. So what is that delta S so that this completes a full rotation and comes back here? What is that delta S? That's the question. Now that can be answered by simply equating this to 2 pi, because if this is equal, in fact it is actually 2 pi into an integer, but we are trying to find out which is that smallest delta S. Of course 2 pi into integer is sufficient, because when 2 beta delta S is 2 pi into an integer, this is, when it appears in the exponential, will be the same as e raised to j 5 minus 2 beta S dash, which means that the phasor angle remains the same, though 2 beta delta S has become 2 pi into an integer. So the smallest delta S, which takes this around once and brings it back here, is found out by this, and that delta S is given by pi, 2 cancels, pi divided by, this 2 and 2 gets cancelled, pi divided by beta, and beta is 2 pi by lambda. Pi and pi cancels. So that delta S is lambda by 2, which means that if you move lambda by 2 in this direction, it means one complete round around the Smith chart, one complete revolution around the Smith chart in this direction. If you move lambda by 2 in this direction, it refers to one complete turning around the Smith chart in this direction. So this is another important point. So remember that one circling around the Smith chart refers to a linear movement on the transmission line, a distance of lambda by 2. And if this circling going around the Smith chart is in the clockwise direction, you will be moving lambda by 2 in the direction, linear direction towards the generator or the source. And if you are moving in this direction, if you are circling around the Smith chart in this direction, that is the counterclockwise direction, one round refers to, or one round translates to, a distance lambda by 2 on the transmission line towards the load. So this is the next important observation. So these points are very important. Remember, if you are moving in this direction on the Smith chart, you are going towards the load on the transmission line. If you move in this direction, you are going towards the source. One complete circling of the transmission of the Smith chart refers to a movement of lambda by 2 on the Smith chart. And by extension of that thing, if you move twice, it refers to movement of lambda on the transmission line. So moving on to the next observation. So the next observation is that, let's say we have the Smith chart. U and V, and we have these XA circles, right? Maybe just a few. Okay. Now what happens is, on this, we know that on this XA is equal to 0. On this XA is equal to 0. On this side XA is positive, on this side XA is negative. I think that was explained earlier. Now what happens is, This circle is for RA equal to 0. So this point refers to RA0, XA0. This point refers to RA1, XA0. This refers to RA2, XA0. And in between somewhere here you will have RA.5, XA0. So basically, and remember RA plus JXA is the result of Z divided by the impedance divided by R0. It is the result of the impedance divided by R0, and that is, to be more specific, it is ZS divided by R0. And if S is equal to 0, it becomes ZR by R0, because at S0 you have the load. Okay, so what this means, which means that since this is the case, and on this horizontal the way we have drawn, on this axis XA is 0, whatever impedance you have on this axis is real. That is one point, because XA is 0 on this. Whereas on the right half, on this radius, if you see, RA varies from 1 to infinity. So this is 2, and 3 will be somewhere here, or maybe 1.5 will be somewhere here. So whatever it be, on this radius, RA will be always greater than or equal to 1, which means that on this ZS will be real, and since this is now RA, because XA is 0, since this is RA and RA is between 1 and infinity, ZS will be greater than or equal to R0. So remember that on this radius towards the right, the impedance will be greater than or equal to R0, or the normalized impedance. Of course, impedance will be real, resistive, and it will be greater than or equal to R0, which is the same as saying that the normalized impedance will be real, that is RA, and greater than or equal to 1. And by the same argument, on this side, leaving out the 1 here, on this side I can say that ZS will be real and less than R0, because ZS by R0 equal to RA is less than 1 on this radius. So this is the next important observation. In fact, this is actually this observation is handy in calculating the standing wave ratio, as we'll see later in the examples. So with these observations with us, we are now in a position to slowly use the transmission line for actual, use the Smith chart for actual transmission line calculations. So now we will take one very simple example. We will try more examples. We'll solve more examples in the next video. We'll take a very simple example now, which goes like this. So this is the statement of the problem. A 50 ohm lossless line. A 50 ohm lossless line. So R0 is 50. 50 ohm lossless line has ZR equal to 40 plus J 30 ohms. So that is the load impedance given. It is a lossless transmission line. It is not matched. So definitely there is going to be reflection. And the load is set S equal to 0. So unless otherwise specified, you have to take that the load is at S equal to 0. We have to find the reflection coefficient K. This is our task. So let's see how we can use the transmission line to do, the Smith chart to do this. Before that, we will solve this problem analytically without the Smith chart, so that we'll know what is the actual answer. It's a simple problem to solve. This is a simple example. We'll take more complicated problems later. So K, as you know, is ZR minus R naught by ZR plus R naught. ZR is this, ZR minus R naught is 50, ZR minus R naught gives minus 10 plus J 30, and in the denominator you will have 90 plus J 30, and this results in 0.333 with a phase angle of pi by 2, 90 degrees. This is the answer. We know this is the answer. Now we will use the Smith chart to solve this problem. Let us solve this using the Smith chart. So when we are using the Smith chart, first we have to normalize the impedance, because the Smith chart is nothing but a representation of the normalized impedances. That's what it is, because you have various circles for RA, various circles for XA, which appear together in the form of a nice pattern. So first thing is we normalize the impedance. So this, we can take this in general as ZS at S equal to 0. So ZS by R naught becomes ZR by R naught. So we get 40 plus J30 by 50. So this is what is going to give us this. ZS by R naught, but at S equal to 0, that's all. So this will result in 40 by 50 is 0.8 plus J, 30 by 50 is 0.6. So this is the normalized impedance, normalized load impedance. Now we note it down here. RA is 0.8, XA is 0.6. Now we take the Smith chart. Before I take the actual Smith chart, I will just show how we do it on the Smith chart. We take the Smith chart. We take the Smith chart. We take the Smith chart. Try to make it look as closely resemble a circle as possible. Okay, we'll take the Smith chart, and we know this is for RA equal to 0 and RA equal to 1 is this. So as RA value increases, the circle shrinks and its center shifts, which means that RA equal to 0.8 will be slightly on this side with its center and radius slightly more than this. So RA equal to 0.8 circle will be, because this is RA equal to 1, RA equal to 0.8 circle will be like this somewhat. RA equal to 0.8. This is RA equal to 1. And of course, if I had RA equal to 0.7, it would be somewhere here. Of course, not to scale. It is not being drawn to scale. It's just a rough sketch, which again captures the features. Now moving on to XA. XA1 is this. XA2 will be something like this. And XA 0.5, if you see our earlier Smith chart, the way we drew it earlier, XA equal to 0.5 will be this. XA equal to 1 is here, XA equal to 2 is here. Similarly, minus 2, minus 1, minus 0.5. Now in our case, XA is 0.6. So if I take XA 0.6, as you can see, as XA increases, the circles, the curves move in this direction. So XA equal to 0.6 will be somewhere here. XA equal to 0.6 will be somewhere here. So this is XA equal to 0.6. Now our normalized impedance is RA plus JXA, which will be RA plus JXA, which is 0.8 plus 0.6. 0.8 plus J 0.6. RA 0.8 is this. This is the RA 0.8 circle. Did I write it as RA equal to 1? It is RA equal to 0.8. RA 0.8 circle is here and XA 0.6 is here. The two intersect here. This is the impedance, normalized impedance. RA equal to, this point represents the normalized impedance in the sense it is the intersection of RA equal to 0.8 and XA equal to 0.6. If by chance XA was minus 0.6, then it would have been somewhere here, the reflection of this. Okay, so this is the point which represents the normalized impedance, and consequently this will be our reflection coefficient. K e power j5 will be this, because it is, this point has a particular u and a particular v, and remember k e raised to j 5 minus 2 beta s is u plus jv. We have s0 in our case, so reflection coefficient is u plus jv, and in this case we found that u is 0. V, if you find in the actual Smith chart, it will be, and you can, even the way I have drawn it here, it looks roughly 1 by 3. So the reflection coefficient magnitude is 1 by 3, that is 0.333, and angle is pi by 2. So you can see how we could find the reflection coefficient from the Smith chart just by a simple calculation of the normalized impedance and then locating that normalized impedance properly on the Smith chart, identifying the corresponding u and v coordinates and putting them together to get the reflection coefficient. So this is how we use the Smith chart in finding out the reflection coefficient. The Smith chart is very versatile. There are so many other things which we can do, but I will demonstrate, we'll go through those examples in the next video. Now before I stop this, I will just show how it is done in an actual Smith chart. So this is the Smith chart. Again, I am not sure whether it is visible clearly, but since I have already demonstrated it on the board, it must be easy. So remember, we had RA as 0.8 and the various RA circle you can see here. This is RA equal to 1. I don't know whether it's clearly visible. This is RA equal to 1. RA equal to 0.8. So RA 0.8 and RA 0.6, RA 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, right? And XA circles you can see here. The XA circles, XA2, XA 1.8, XA 1.6, XA1, XA 0.9, XA 0.8. XA 0.7, XA 0.6. You can see XA 0.6 here, XA 0.6, and we have to see where it coincides with RA 0.8. So XA 0.6 and RA 0.8 is here. This is that point. This is RA 0.8. So you can see 0.8 here. RA 0.8, XA 0.6. Now you can measure the angle here. So this is the center. This is that point which we have, RA is equal to 0.8 XA 0.6, and you can see the angle here, it's slightly more than 90. That's because I have not been very precise in locating this. Such tolerances will be there. This is slightly, it's showing slightly more than 90, but we can take it as 90. So the angle of the reflection coefficient is 90, and the magnitude, you have to use a divider or a compass. The compass will be handy because we may have to draw circles later. So this is the magnitude. This is the magnitude. Now after fixing this on the compass, you should come back. There will be a scale here. Any useful Smith chart should have a scale here. And in the scale, you can see you have to use the reflection coefficient E or I. Reflection coefficient E or I scale. You can see the 0 here, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Reflection coefficient E or I on that scale center, and you can see that it is showing almost 0.34 or something like that. You can see this is 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 is here. Now I will go back to 0. You can see it's slightly more than 0.3, between 0.3 and 0.4, probably closer to 0.3 if this was sharp enough or if it was a divider. So you can see that the magnitude is 0.3 plus, which is 0.333. We can take it as 0.333. And the phase angle is 90. So you have measured the angle from the dial that you have here, if I may call it as a dial. The angle is here. We can see the angle increasing from here. The angle increases. Angle of reflection coefficient in degrees. You can see here angle of reflection coefficient in degrees. So that's the angle which we used, and the magnitude of K was found from this. So this is how we use the Smith chart, a simple example on how to use the Smith chart to carry out the transmission line calculation. So in the next video, we will look at more examples.